accept in everyday life. Every time a school in Norway puts up video cameras to prevent people from breaking windows, tagging, whatever, there's normally an outrage. Why are you taping our kids in the schoolyard during the school day, etc.? Why are you taping what's going on there in the evenings? But if someone tries to suggest that we're going to log what's going on the internet, we're going to try and force the ISPs to function as gatekeepers, it's normally quite silent. So it's an important time to be aware of what's going on and make up your mind. Do you want to keep the internet as a free, open part of society where the normal laws rule and where crime is handled in the ordinary fashion or not? And a famous case has been mentioned here earlier today, and I predict that in the aftermath of that case in Sweden, we will see more pressure on the different government bodies to sort of relax the laws and make it possible to dip into the logs and the ongoings on the internet. Not by the police, which is okay because that is the police's job, but by private bodies, private companies with an interest in what's going on online. I'm going to round this off by saying that I'm very optimistic about the future of the internet and the present time on the internet. There's no reason, I think, to be too pessimistic, but there's a reason to be realistic and make sure that things at work aren't broken. I've got two final thoughts, which are: which good causes, if any, are good enough to set aside the basic rights of our citizens and set aside other laws as we hunt for a solution to rights being infringed upon? And which course will be the next one where someone deems it appropriate to hand out personal information normally kept from the public into the hands of a private party wanting to follow up on their own, instead of handing that data over to the police that can conduct professional investigation into if there has been or has not been a crime conducted. So, I feel that, in closing, we all have a duty here today to actually stand up for the internet and make sure that it's not regulated in a different way than society in general. Just make sure that the communication providers aren't obligated to dip into what you're doing, and that we can enjoy the same freedom online as we do today and as we do offline also in the future. Thanks.
Hello. I want to start by thanking John for a good speech. It's a rare treat, in fact, to hear these issues discussed on the level where I think they should be discussed, which is the level of principles and ideas. Principles and ideas is what should govern society and not interests and industries, and therefore I think it's a good thing that, whether you agree with him or not, a few people think of this as issues larger than what tends to be the case when we discuss, for instance, the music industry. What I find very interesting and amazing about John is that I don't know if many of you have read any of his writings, but what he wrote about these issues in the mid-90s is exactly what we're discussing today, and it's exactly with the arguments that people are starting to use today. So this means at least two things. First, that he was right in identifying the issues and the dilemmas, and secondly, that change on this scale is very slow in happening. Now, as a former rock journalist, I could be very easily tempted to go down the road of discussing file sharing and the music industry, and God knows I've had more than my healthy degree of those debates, and I'm sure there will be more. And I could also be very tempted to remix John or to remix Torgeir, or talk in general about the importance of protecting the net. But I thought I'd try and go off on a bit of a tangent and make a couple of points. The first point will be familiar to those of you who may have read a comment I wrote a couple of days leading up to this debate, so you'll have to bear with me for that. Now, in the Declaration of the Independence of Cyberspace that John wrote in 1996, he has essentially said that, correct me if I'm wrong, the internet is too important to be left to politicians and governments. But as we all know, this has not kept governments and corporations from trying to colonize and control the net as best they can. So I think it is kind of interesting and perhaps even fruitful to look at how the political parties and the ideologies they purport to represent deal with these issues. And in this clash between, on the one hand, corporate and political interests trying to gain some sort of control over this disruptive force of the net, and on the other hand, the civil rights of the citizens of the net, such as freedom of speech and privacy, I increasingly find that the political parties, at least in this country, are either not there at all because they don't have a clue, or they seem to be placing themselves in all the wrong places in relation to what is traditionally the perceived positions of these parties on principle-related issues from the physical world. By this I mean that the net seems to be messing up the left-right spectrum, rendering it more or less useless on net-related issues. The reason this is particularly interesting to us Europeans and Norwegians, of course, is that we have a whole bunch of political parties unlike what you have in the US. So we need some tools to keep these people sorted and find out where they stand. And traditionally, I guess, you would expect for what we call liberal conservative parties on the right to be the most vigorous advocates of the rights and the freedoms of the individual, while you would expect parties on the left to put the collective above the individual and perhaps even to work to put in place powerful mechanisms to restrict rampant market forces. Now, what you seem to see, in my opinion, in the Norwegian political debate is somehow that things are the other way around. Last week, Høyre, the Liberal Conservative Party, coincidentally the party of our host tonight, the leader of Civita, is out in favor of stronger governmental measures against illegal file sharing and piracy. They do mention that there are some privacy issues at stake, but the main concern of this party seems to be to defend copyright and the entertainment industry through political force. Well, I guess it makes sense for conservatives to be on the side of industry. Historically, that has been the case. And I guess it also makes sense for the conservative mind to be a bit messed up by all this radical change. But how about those other liberal values like privacy and so on? There seems to be some confusion here, because for some reason now the most outspoken advocates of privacy and net neutrality, issues that my predecessors in this chair has spoken a lot about, seems to be the parties to the center and to the left, with various positions. Venstre, SV, Rødt. Now, of course, this leads to, and here I go a little bit down the road of music industry debate after all, leads to artists and the entertainment industry labeling these parties pro-piracy. And this happens because it seems very hard for some people to get their heads around the fact that these questions are actually about even more important issues than copyright and the business model of the entertainment industry. So anyway, suddenly you have the left worrying about the rights